When we try to define what security is, it's helpful to try and focus on a few key questions, two of which are really set out in this slide. And those are, is security just about technology, and is it just about protecting information from third parties that should not have it? Well, those are key concepts in security. They are not the only concepts in security, as we'll see. As we start down the path of trying to define security, it's helpful to focus on what security is and how it's broader than some common conceptions of it. And focusing on a critical key point early, which is that the data set that security focuses on is much broader than privacy. Privacy tends to focus, and in fact exclusively focuses on information that is about an individual, whether that's an employee, a customer, or some other person. But as we'll see in the next slide, the data set that security focuses on is inclusive of that, but much broader. So examples of common data sets that implicate security are financial information. Obviously, in the second bullet point, we're talking about information that implicates privacy as well, which is information regarding individuals. But we also see proprietary and confidential information that a business or entity holds, including undisclosed M&A activity, marketing plans, and pricing, are obviously examples of information over which security would be focused on. IP, business process information, business trends, user information, and as we move further and further into the world of AI, machine learning, and big data, obviously machine data and other forms of similar information that would feed AI and similar automated processes are also of critical importance to many businesses, and as a result have to be secured. And again, these are just some examples. There are many other examples of data sets that are focused on by security principles, but not privacy principles. Another key point in security is that security is not just about technology. One formulation of security you hear is that it focuses on people, process, and technology. Candidly, I think the last point really is about controls, not just technology. And as we'll see, there are a variety of forms of controls that security includes that are beyond, that include but are beyond technology. And when we look at those key issues of people, process, and technology, here are some examples of each of those. From a people perspective, training and education, following good security practices, and dealing with insider threats are critical steps to examine when you're looking at those kind of points under the people prong here. Training and education obviously can include web-based training, other forms of training, as well as, frankly, practical steps such as how to deal with phishing campaigns, including fake phishing campaigns run by companies to test their employees. From a process perspective, making sure that appropriate governance is in place is often a step that companies will consider. Looking at policies and procedures is also something that many companies examine as part of this process. And looking at information sharing, whether that's sharing with the government or public sector to try to help deal with threats, as well as sharing with other private sector organizations that can try to help figure out some of these cyber issues, is a step that some companies take in the process side. From a technology side, data loss prevention, or DLP technology, is used by some companies to try to help keep information from flowing off their network, and obviously that's a security component that should be considered in appropriate circumstances, as is penetration testing or pen testing, which is where a company tests its sort of outer shell of its security by seeing when and how it can be penetrated by malicious third parties. To the point I made earlier about controls, we can certainly focus on the technical controls, but really when we look at controls, there are physical, administrative, and technical controls. And examples of those are physical security that could lead, or lack thereof, frankly, that could lead to a cyber incident. Administrative controls focus on obviously providing some assurance around, and frankly governance around, who has access to information within an organization. There's other examples of administrative controls as well. And obviously technical controls focus on, as we talked about in the prior slide, the technology that's used to implement many of those things. So Again, when we look at controls, technology is important, but technology alone cannot solve all of our security problems. Finally, we see that security, when we look at it, is not just about protecting data from malicious third parties. There are two other components, and this is sometimes known as the CIA triad, which focuses on confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data. And so, again, the common formulation is to focus on confidentiality, which is in some ways similar, as we've discussed in prior slidecasts. It's very similar to the privacy formulation, except it focuses on restricting third parties from getting data versus restricting a party that is legitimately has data from what uses it may make of that data when it relates to an individual. So confidentiality is again different but similar to certain privacy concepts. Integrity really focuses on how accurate the data is for its intended purpose, and availability obviously is how available that data is to be used for its intended purpose by an organization. And security is implicated in all three of those thoughts. And so again, when we look at security, we can't simply look at the confidentiality portion, but rather have to look at all of these concepts to help start to define what security is.